What's up, YouTube? So in this episode I need to keep on going on to this BMW N52 cylinder head, get it cleaned and prepared so that I can get it reinstalled. I'm still waiting on this exhaust valve to arrive. It should arrive any day now, I think. And I've also going to probably take the time and clean up the block surface as well. I'm just going to clean up the decks, make sure they're nice and free of any kind of carbon or dirt or any kind of leftover gasket material. A few tools that I use to do this. Basically a rag and some kind of degreaser, whether you're using brake clean or some kind of you can use various things like Varsol or whatever. You just don't want to get it too heavily onto the head if it's not fully stripped. So we're just going to be cleaning gasket surfaces. And then for the really hard stuff, I'll step up to a razor blade scraper, just kind of come along there and take stuff off. Does a really nice job most of the time. And then for the really hard stuff, we move up to air, and this is what I call a roll-lock bristle disc. The yellow is safe for aluminum up to a certain amount. It's not something you want to hold on there because you can see how many fine scratches that's already left, just that kind of plasticky kind of stuff. So the white is quite safe for aluminum, but the yellow is generally what I use just for light passes to take off any material, and it's never caused me a problem in the past. So I want to clean up this valve cover surface going all the way around and around the centers of the spark plug galleries, because there's a gasket sealing surface there. And then probably try and get these exhaust gaskets out. They shouldn't be too difficult to get out of there. Come around onto the intake side and do the same thing over here. You can see it's really clean. Make sure all this dirt stays out of the oil gallery. And then of course move on to the lower side, flip it over, take the head gasket off, and get it all cleaned up and prepared to go back together. It should be within a couple days that I get the valve, and I'll just go ahead and put the valve in and start prepping the head, and maybe do a torque install and then continue on in another video and finish the car right up. So like I mentioned to start, all I like to do is just take a rag, nice clean rag, get a lot of brake clean into it, some kind of cleaner, and just wipe down all the gasket surfaces first, because then you can really start to see what needs to be cleaned and what doesn't. The brake clean will start taking off a lot of it, and you'll see, oh wow, well, it's not half as bad as you thought it was. And some of the dirt you can actually pick up and wipe out of there. You can see I already got stuff coming out off onto the rag, so kind of just fold that over and use another side of it. You want to be careful not to be off the rag and hit one of these edges. A lot of them are really razor sharp. Fortunately, this is not too bad actually. But some machined edges like that are so sharp they'll just fillet the skin right off you. Got to be a little bit more careful with the back. There's a lot of dirt back there. And then I've also noticed some of the little pine needles have made their way in here from when I got the valve cover off. So you kind of just want to, anything that you notice that's in the top gallery, you just kind of go through it and make sure it's all out of there. Now that we got all that, all the real oily stuff and just the minor stuff that was on there off, we can just go along with our razor blade next and just gently take off some of the surface carbon that's all close to the gasket edge. You don't want an old crappy razor, because it can have just imperfections in the edge of it and cause little gouges. I'm pretty lucky. This head's very clean, actually. And then really this is probably almost clean enough that you could actually leave it like that. You might even be able to break down some more of this with some brake clean. But I'll just whip around with the orbital and the roll lock really quickly. And then with that all done, I come through with the brake clean one more time, just to make sure I get all that residue that's left over. Now I really don't know, and I'm kind of just guessing that these exhaust gaskets just kind of peel out of here. Yeah, they must have a metal ring on the inside. There we go. It's just a compressible gasket. Makes for a really nice seal. A little bit messy to get out, but I just want to make sure none of the gasket material falls back into the exhaust ports. Oh, look at the carbon buildup there. So what I'll probably do is I'll get all these out, break up some of that carbon, and maybe even put the vacuum down those ports just to try and get out some of it. You can see how sludgy number 4 has become just from not running properly. And now with that much of it done, I'll just go over it again with the brake clean. And the exhaust side should really just seal on those gaskets, so it doesn't really have to be cleaned up, but I'll go ahead and get rid of any of this oil residue that I'm seeing that's leaked out just around here. And for the intake, same thing. Go right around those intake ports with some cleaner. And you'll start to see they're not really bad at all. I mean, now just for the sake of flipping this thing over and not losing all the rockers, because I can tell it's probably going to happen, I'll just use one of my trays and just start lining up all the rockers in it from one side to the other. So you can see we got all our ducks in a row. So the first, second, third, and fourth will be placed. The fifth one is actually the one that I've already taken out for the exhaust valve I removed, and then the rest of them will be placed in order. So this is not something you want to kick around or leave in your tool tray so that it can get shaked all over the place and have them all disordered. I'm sure you could put them in different spots and get away with it, but I highly advise against doing something like that. With them all removed, should just be able to flip this up. Anything else that might fall out is probably going to be the washers for the head bolts. So here you can see I still left the head gasket pretty much in place, and just giving a good pull on it. We'll lift it right off. The gasket appears to be in really good condition. I don't see any problems with it anywhere. It's more than likely the original gasket. Oh, look at that, it actually says the B25 on there. So, is it possible I have a genuine gasket in my eBay box? It looks so similar. So I'll take this used rag first, just to wipe off most of this oil and coolant that's kind of spilled out. Just mop up most of it. Same procedure all over again. So the cylinder head sealing surface is very crucial. It's not something that we can start gouging or etching. I see people laying the surface or the deck of a cylinder head right on their bench and then sliding it across the bench. That's like, if you want a leaking cylinder head gasket, that's what you do. So I mean, we need to be gentle here, and nothing excessive. Whether you're using the scraper or an orbital or some kind of sanding block or emery cloth, whatever you're using, be very, very gentle. So just some light scraping, and you're going to come up to these holes with a knife and it's going to jam a little bit. Don't force it, and you'll find that you can just get off what was left from the old gasket. Believe it or not, I've heard stories of guys doing cylinder head gasket jobs under warranty at the dealerships, and basically to the point where they would just lift up the head enough to get the old gasket out, the new gasket in, and slap that thing right back together. Such a horrible thing to do, but I've heard it from numerous places. Then I'll just come along with the rag again. Lots of brake clean. And then there's just one last thing I think I want to do here. Is number 4 cylinder. The other exhaust valve has this great big lump of carbon on it, and I want to get it off of there. And this guy should be ready to install. So we're going to try and do the same thing to the block surface. So right away I noticed the block deck has like what appears to be a Teflon coating. And I can't be sure if that's factory or if it's been gasket printed, but it's really hard to feel in some spots. Like there, I mean, I can't feel it at all. So I'm not going to play with that too much. It looks really clean all the way around. I might try and get some of the direct stuff from the gasket off of it, but I think for the most part we're just going to concentrate on these areas here, the actual cylinder cases, and just this outlying area. You want to have plenty of clean rags on hand for work like this. It can use up a lot of them, and you want to keep your work as clean as possible. You know, no matter the circumstances that you're working in. And we're just going to come in here and just ever so lightly. Take off some of the easy stuff to get off. It's coming off just very easily, and all the this gray coating is staying in place nicely. The main reason for the rag is just to make sure that if by chance I slip with the razor blade and it falls down into the cylinder, I'm not going to stab one of the cylinder walls. Very doubtful that will happen, but better safe than sorry. Mainly due to this material, whatever it is. I don't want to get too crazy on it. So I'm actually going to just use, I think this is 800 grit, and I'm just going to do a finishing job with this to try and get the rest of this residue off of the sealing surface. And you can see just working away like that, and get rid of it easily. And I'll just continue around all the cylinders like this until I have pretty much everything nice and clean, something like that. Make sure nothing's going to get down into that crankcase. Try and keep things as clean as possible. Now I'm kind of hoping this valve arrives in the next day or two, but if it doesn't, I'll probably just have to end this video here. And but if I get the valve, I'll bang it in and we'll finish the video with that. But if not, I hope you liked this video, and if you did, definitely give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for me. Leave your questions and comments further down below, and I'll see you in the next one.